Really get why this is so critical, we have to start with a story where things went horribly, horribly wrong. Let's look at what happens when an audit program fails.
Take a look at this. This is the aftermath of a massive explosion at the Longford gas facility in Australia, way back in 1998. It was a devastating event, and it knocked out the gas supply for the entire state of Victoria for 2 whole weeks. But, the real tragedy here is that this was completely and totally preventable. 2 employees lost their lives in that explosion and the fire that followed.
And 8 other people were seriously injured.
So what went wrong? I mean, how could this happen? Well, here's the really chilling part. An audit was actually done just 6 months before the explosion. But that audit completely failed to spot huge systemic problems in everything. Risk management, training, operating procedures, pretty much all the fundamentals of a safe operation. This is a brutal lesson in the difference between just doing an audit and doing one that's actually effective.
Okay, so we've seen the devastating consequences of failure. Let's flip this around and talk about the solution. How does a proper audit act as a shield, protecting workers, the public, and the environment?
So, what is a process safety audit officially? Well, think of it like a really thorough health checkup for a facility's safety systems. The key words here are systematic and independent. It's not about pointing fingers or placing blame. It's about getting an honest look to verify that the systems you design on paper are actually working the way they're supposed to, day in and day out. And auditing doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's actually one of the 20 core elements of what's called risk-based process safety, or RBPS. And if you look here, you can see it sits under the final pillar, learn from experience. It's the element that helps make sure the whole system is learning, adapting, and staying strong.
So here's the bottom line. Auditing is the ultimate quality control check. I mean, you can have the most brilliant procedures and the best design training programs in the world, but if you don't audit them effectively, you have absolutely no way of knowing if they're actually being followed.
Okay, so how do you do it right? Well, a successful audit isn't just a single event that happens one afternoon. It's a structured 4-phase process. Let's walk through that blueprint. The whole life cycle really breaks down into these 4 key stages. You've got your pre-audit prep, then actually conducting the audit on site, then preparing the report, and finally, and this might just be the most important piece, the follow-up. Each one builds on the one before it. Phase 1 is all about preparation. And, the success of an audit really begins long before anyone even sets foot in the facility. In this phase, you define exactly what you're looking at, you assemble a team that has the right expertise, and you do your homework. The team digs into everything from process descriptions to old audit reports so they can hit the ground running.
All right, now we get to phase 2, the execution. This is the on-site part. It always starts with a kickoff meeting to get everyone on the same page. Then the auditors start gathering evidence. They're looking at records, they're observing work as it happens, and they're talking to people at every level. It all wraps up with a closing meeting where they present their main findings. Now we're at the final stages, and these are absolutely critical. First, a clear, accurate report gets written up. But the job is not done. A report is totally useless if it just sits on a shelf and collects dust, right? So the facility has to create a real action plan to fix the issues, assign clear responsibilities, and set deadlines. The loop is only closed when you verify that those actions are not only done, but that they were actually effective. Okay, so that's the playbook. But what does all this look like out in the real world? Who actually performs these audits, and how do you apply it on a truly massive scale? Well, audits usually fall into 3 main buckets based on who's doing them. A first-party audit is basically you checking your own homework. It's an internal self-check. A second-party audit is still internal, but you bring in folks from a different site or department, a fresh set of eyes. And then you have third-party audits. That's when you bring in completely independent external experts. They offer the most objectivity, and a really healthy safety program will probably use a mix of all 3. So let's scale this idea up. How do you take these principles and apply them across an entire industry, something like the oil and gas sector, with all of its complex, high-hazard facilities? Well, check this out. Here is a fantastic real-world example of leadership. In 2020, the Egyptian oil and gas sector created a formal committee to audit every single company in the sector against that 20-element RBPS framework. And the outcome wasn't just some report with a list of problems. The audits showed a widespread need for more training, which led directly to a huge sector-wide safety training campaign. That is what a proactive, learning culture looks like in action. That example from Egypt really gets to the heart of our final crucial point. What's the difference between an audit program that truly builds a strong safety culture and one that's just, well, just checking boxes? These are the red flags. These are the warning signs that your audit program is broken. If there's no system to track what you find, if fixes are never fully completed, or if you see the exact same problem showing up audit after audit, your program is failing. It's just a paper exercise. And that is exactly how you end up with another disaster like Longford.
On the other hand, this is what success looks like. This is what a healthy, mature program looks like. Audits are actually getting done on time. Over time, you start seeing fewer and fewer big problems because the system is genuinely improving. And here's the kicker: no repeat findings. Your audit program is successfully finding and fixing weaknesses before a near miss or an incident forces you to.
So, we'll leave you with this one question to really think about. For your workplace or for any complex system you rely on, it's worth asking. Is the safety audit program a genuine search for risk, or is it just about checking a box? Because, as we've seen today, the answer to that question can quite literally be the difference between life and death.